A very important election. I think you could sense that there's a lot of frustration with the process of going to cast your vote and feeling that it doesn't really change much. Even when parties change, governments change, there's still a lot of issues that don't change.
Yeah.
So I think people are very reflective. Some people are even showing some level of apathy
Yeah.
that they don't even want to participate. But I think that it's important for us to engage, and particularly as we go and talk about the Ghana Compact,
Yeah.
to engage regardless of the challenges, because it's citizens that are going to sort of be in the lead in solving our problems. If citizens are active and engaged, then we have a chance of actually overcoming our problems. But if we think that somebody else from somewhere or some messiah
Yeah.
will come and sort our problems out, then I think we are mistaken. We'll probably be in the same. So I would encourage people to participate, even when people feel they don't have a choice. If you don't have a choice, there are 13 candidates.
Yeah.
Go and
Pick one.
express yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Listen to them and make a choice.
I think so. So I think we should be active citizens all the time,
Right.
and elections is the best expression of that.
Right. So the Ghana Compact, exactly what is it?
Well, this is an initiative of Dr. Kewa Mwako, who is the founder of the Africa Center for Economic Transformation, ACED. And the whole idea is just to set a vision for, for Ghana and trying to overcome some of its political and economic transformation issues. Because we almost over 30 years under the Fourth Republic, and in spite of the successes that we have chalked, everybody acknowledges that Ghana could be in a much better place and feel that we have stagnated and retrogressing. And it's identifying those big structural challenges and how we can mobilize the whole of society to be able to confront that. So it is trying to set a social contract that would align over time with the interests of politicians, the interests of institutions of the state, the interests of citizens, so that we can be focused over a long-term period to be able to achieve this transformation that we are talking about. And it's collaborating with other policy institutes like my organization, CDD, but Imani, ISE, Institute for Fiscal Studies, all these institutions that sort of have the power and the knowledge to sort of drive that agenda. So that's been the compact, and we've all sort of collaborated with him to try and push this agenda.
Right. So, I mean, every now and then we have all these civil society organizations coming up with reports, policy documents, and all of that. What makes this Ghana Compact different from all of these other, reports and documents that we have?
I think what it's trying to do is it's really mobilize, all of these societal groups.
Yeah.
So there's been a collaboration with the Council of State, collaboration with political parties, collaboration with, chieftains institutions. It's a real sort of grassroots and, bringing the elites and grassroots together to really mobilize to drive this agenda. Because when when I'm doing work on corruption and so on, it might be very specific. But the kind of things that we are talking about requires a very sort of really mobilizing a huge group of people to come to be on the same level and the same understanding of what the challenges are and what kinds of interventions that are needed and the discipline that is needed. So it's going beyond what we do on our day-to-day basis to really start thinking long-term and how we can position ourselves and structure our activities towards that agenda. And I think for me, it's something that really needs to be encouraged, really needs to be supported, going forward.
So, I mean, we've talked about, bringing all of these, civil society together, to do all of this. The process, the compact process, what has it been so far?
So it's been a real bottom-up approach. So yes, as policy institutes, we are focused on sort of generating the ideas, testing the ideas, debating it, agreeing a consensus around that. So it started with that, those policy institutes. But there has been a lot of engagement, as I said, with civil society, with young people, with political parties having political party dialogues. But one of the things that culminated recently was the Citizen Convention that had over 500 people attending and coming in to discuss and agree on the structure of the social contract. What issues are important to us? What challenges? How are we going to address it? And what is the accountability mechanism that we should set in place to track progress over time?
Right.
So I think that for me has been very collaborative. It's been engaging, both at the top and also at the bottom.
So, what does success, look like for the compact?
It's
What are
it's-
you? What is
yeah,
that
what
thing that
we,
you're
what we
looking
are, what we want to see.
at? Yes.
It's a social contract. So we want it to align with the development program of the day.
Right.
We want it to align with the political agenda of the day so that there is no doubt that this is what it is that we are pursuing. So we are really expecting that political parties, the state, particularly the National Development Planning Commission, and all the people that set our development agenda should align with the social contract. And it's one of the things that we're trying to do before the election to really get the political parties to sort of buy in into those big agenda issues that we really want us to focus on going into the elections. When you start thinking about campaign financing, for instance, the monetization of our politics, if you don't resolve the monetization of your politics, you cannot address corruption.
Yeah.
Our local government is completely collapsed. People don't, it doesn't do the work that it's supposed to do in just servicing people at the grassroots on a day-to-day basis. If you don't revive local government, even your democracy is at risk. So these are fundamental issues. We talk about electing MMDCs and all of those things. Is everybody puts it in their manifesto, it never gets done. What do we do about values? How important is our values? It seems like today I'm just driving up to GHOne. I'm sure those who come here every day, you see all the cars, we are all in the lane, and people are passing on the side, comes through GHOne and try to enter. So that discipline, because you know that you are not going to be held accountable. What are we as citizens going to do about that? Because we cannot continue that way. It's disruptive, it's a danger to people even using the sidewalks, all of that. So we have to come back to our values and ask ourselves what is important, what we care about as Ghanaians. If we don't do that collectively, we are not going anywhere. And so those are some of the issues but as I said, it has to align with the program of the day because it's resources that we are going to use to pursue. If it's not aligned, then we'll be spending our resources and our energy elsewhere, and the problems, stay.
So with the upcoming elections, I mean, will the compact essentially help inform some of the choices that we make in the upcoming elections, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes. So we are basically saying that citizens have to evaluate, programs, and of course, yes, a lot of promises. Politicians make a lot of promises, and a lot of them don't get fulfilled. And we know also our economic conditions. So when people are promising they'll pay for this, they'll pay for that, you keep asking themselves, where are they going to find the money? Where is the fiscal discipline? When we all know that we are basically broke. So I think it's really evaluating those kinds of issues and making your choice. But it is not the end. What happens when the new government comes? For us, that's the most important thing.
Right.
Our debt crisis don't go away because we have elections. Our CD to dollar problems, FX problems don't go away because we have elections. So we are really convinced that to really make sure that we begin to ensure this alignment happens, in the first 3 months of the new government, we have to have a national convention where we discuss again these commitments and say, how are we going to make sure that from day one, we are beginning to implement these issues and address these issues that are structural to our political and economic future.
Right.
And that is one of the things that we are telling the political parties, that whoever becomes, we are not going to succeed if we don't work together. And I think because of the political polarization that we have in this country, you need this kind of civil society and the larger civil society engage in driving this agenda instead of leaving it to only politicians to do it.
Right.
Which then separates us. Because, it's NDC that's doing it, so LP people will not participate. Or it's MPP that's doing it, so somebody will not participate. We know that this will benefit us, so we want to be at the forefront of ensuring that that conversation happens.
Right. So, what's next on the compact agenda?
I mean, I think even in the run up to, we're almost close to election,
Yes.
we are still telling the politicians, prepare.
Yeah.
Because, as I said, those issues that we are talking about don't go away.
So it's continuous.
It has to be continued, and we have to prepare.
So then after whoever comes into office, after we have that dialogue, then moving forward, how are we moving forward with?
So one of the
that?
things, we want an accountability mechanism,
Right.
particularly through the National Development Planning Commission, that if we agree on the social contract, then we want to see progress and metrics that show us that we are actually implementing the plan through the National Development Planning. So they are going to be key. So that is the state institution that we expect should lead that. We expect Parliament should also be involved in that process of tracking, so that we can hold each other accountable for how we are trying to address this. For now to 2050, we need to have that metric, that long-term plan about all the key things that we have to look at. And I think if we are committed as citizens to also helping the government of the day, the state, and everybody, we can get there.
All right. I mean, so we're just 18 days, to election 2024. When you look at a lot of the political messages that are being given by the various politicians, the promises that are made here and there, those that are in their manifestos and those that are not in their manifestos, how do you evaluate this political campaigning messaging so far, especially from the two major political parties? Is it the same of what we have been used to, promises upon promises upon promises, just to get the people to vote, or do you see a shift in trying to be more realistic with the things that you're saying?
No, I mean, we are far from realistic. and that is worrying, because when you look at the economic picture, our debt problem. So, for example, we have defaulted in our debt. We've not paid our debt interest on our debt for maybe the last 2 years or going to 3 years. That will kick in 2 years' time when the new government is in 2027. What preparation are we making to be able to start paying those debts? Because that then adds to the budget monies that maybe you might look using for other kinds of development. There was this talk about the sinking fund and trying to build up, some sort of a cushion so that we can use it. And then the crisis in the north came, the drought, and we've used some of that money to go and support that. So there's going to be a huge period of austerity that is going to be made worse because of the debt payment kicking in. So when you think of that reality and people are promising heaven and earth, you're asking that we are still not being realistic about our challenges, and we are not leading the people well. We are actually lying to them and creating high expectations that everybody's going to be disappointed. When that keeps happening, people lose confidence in democracy and their institutions and their leaders. If you look at the Afrobarometer surveys that have come out recently, we are experiencing the lowest trust ratings in the state, or across all leaders. And the more you do that, the more you degrade the quality of the democracy and the whole democratic experience. So we are I think politicians don't realize the danger of just thinking power first without any consequences. and say, "Oh, let me just say what I need to say in order to get power." And then once I come in, I'll figure out how to do the problem. But the more the people begin to feel that, why do I even need elections? Why do I even have to go and vote and so on and so forth? You are putting the democracy at risk. So I think those are some of the conversations beyond this election that we have to have. That we cannot do this kind of politics. It is damaging to us.
Yeah.
So for me, yes, it's been the same. I've also experienced, I've never seen this level of American-style negative advertising. Almost like
Yeah.
every 10 minutes, every 30 minutes,
Yeah.
somebody attacking somebody.
Yeah.
You know, this is very American, and we know what has happened with America and some of these type of politics. We should not be learning that kind of, politicking. But this is the first time I'm seeing so much.
There's a lot of
Yeah,
adverts.
yeah, adverts
From MPP
NDC
to
in
NDC,
particular.
NDC to MPP.
Yeah, really sort of, some of it is about issues, of course, and that's all positive. But some of the personal attacks and this and that is really not the way to go. And I think when I come to campaign financing, we really don't need to be spending that amount of money, in elections. Who is going to pay for it? It's unfortunately the poor taxpayer who's already in debt. That is going to pay for all the monies that politicians are putting in, and that will be through corruption.
And
So-
speaking of corruption, do you hear enough about it from the major candidates as an issue going into this election?
So it's interesting. Our long-term observers, we have about 100 long-term observers who've been observing elections since October. And one of the things they report is that there's a clear distinction between what the MPP and the NDC are focusing on in terms of their campaign. So the MPP, very much so, free SHS is the key. So education issues are dominant, even in their door-to-door campaign. Whilst the NDC, on the other hand, is focusing on the economy, is focusing on unemployment and corruption. So the separation is also quite clear, because the NDC is definitely capitalizing on the challenges with the economy, the very severe unemployment situations and so on. So it's interesting that there is that, there's that distinction. And it's very clear, even in the adverts that you hear. So it's also an interesting development that at least you get clear choices. So I think with corruption, people, that definitely the MPP has avoided that one. So they are not talking about that, while the NDC raises it consistently in a lot of their adverts.
But in all of this, would you say we are ready from where you sit? Are we ready as a country for the December 7th election?
The Electoral Commission has done well, I think, in spite of the challenges we had with the voter register. Once that was resolved, and I think the opening up of IPAC and so on has brought some transparency to the process. The recent issues with the ballot printing seem to have been resolved quite well. Everybody's happy. So I think from the elections preparation point of view, we are good. We haven't had any issues. Yesterday I saw, some press conference issues around security and all of those things coming up again. And as we have always done, is for all the different structures that help to promote electoral integrity to confront those issues when they come so that they can be addressed. And that's what we've done in every election. If somebody says, oh, something has happened, it's happened, all of us, make sure we can ascertain the truth of the matter and then try to address it before it gets out of hand going into the election. But I think so far it's been good. I also have to commend the media, because I think maybe in this election we will see probably one of the best coverage from the media for an election, because over the years they've become even more professional in terms of the way they set up for the election, how many people they are deploying to various constituencies and so on and so forth. And I think that helps with the transparency of the process. You can't really hide much in that kind of environment. Yeah.
So, I mean, some CSOs recently, have been complaining of having issues with accreditation with the Electoral Commission. And how concerning is that?
I mean, I think
Because there was a certain perception that they may be aligned to a political party and all of that. These are allegations that some of the CSOs were making. And because of that, they've had issues with accreditation with the EC.
Well, I mean, I think yesterday I was at an election working group meeting where the EC sort of addressed the issue about, so it has a criteria for election observation. I mean, this is a political right that any citizen that is willing to, observe the election. I think one of the criteria they said is you have to have some experience and doing it in the past before, certain things that you have to satisfy before they give you accreditation. And I think in most of those instances, for me, if you think that the assessment has not been done, that you meet the criteria and you have been denied, you can appeal to that same system, or you can, go and try and litigate the matter. But as far as I'm concerned, we have even discussed in the past that maybe we should encourage civil society that are interested in, who have not observed before, to maybe start at local government level when we do assembly elections and other kinds of elections. So come national elections and so on, people's experience would have already been built.
Right.
And I think it's a matter that we should pursue
Okay.
going forward. Because I would want more civil society groups to take an interest in observing the election.
All right, Doc. We'll have to end that conversation here.
You're welcome.
Unfortunately, I wish we had more time.
It's a pleasure.
But I'm grateful that you joined us here in the studio
Thank
for us to talk about the Ghana Compact.
Okay.
Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante is a Director for Policy Engagement and Partnerships at CDD-Ghana.